going on in. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for spending the end of your weekend on the Crowley channel, episode 9, number 9, number 9. And due to feedback, criticism that I received after the last interview, I am not going to be asking softball questions today. We're playing hardball tonight. Bob Bajek, how's it going?
Oh, it's going good. I thought the last show was good, but we'll see what we can do.
Oh, the last show was just a warm up. You know what? I get off these things, and then when I'm done, I'm going like, well, why didn't I ask this and that? I wanted to get your take on the All-Star game moving, and I know it's 2 weeks old now.
Sure.
But what was your take on that? I didn't like it for a number of reasons. Number one, we could get politics and that we can talk that, but taking all of that out of it. Hank Aaron died a few months ago. I actually grew up watching him. I remember hitting the 715th home run, and he returned to Milwaukee for a couple years. And it sucks that the game is not being played there, that politics has gotten in the way. And we used to see this shit with the Olympics and that. But now it's spilling into baseball, NBA, et cetera, et cetera. And I was just wondering your take on that.
Well, baseball, whether you like it or not, they can do what they want. So if they disagree with a law, they can move it. Now, people could argue, does this tick off fans or not? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But if they feel strongly, they could pull in or out. I think NCAA did something with bathroom laws in North Carolina. So they see it as a form of protest that we could protest in this country. Again, you could like it or leave it. Some people will decide not to watch baseball. I'm still going to do that. I believe they can do what they want. It's in Denver right now. I mean, it just depends what your viewpoint is. This is gonna fall. This is gonna fall down on what you believe in markets and what you believe in the government. What each can do.
It's just, and like we could talk the politics of it. We could probably pick any major league city on the map and find a reason, something that's going wrong somewhere on the political spectrum. I remember Patrick Mahomes was lobbying for the Toronto Raptors to play in Kansas City this year, and I guess they because there were some police situations there, as well as Minneapolis, there was some pushback on that. The Raptors eventually settled on Florida, where the Blue Jays are playing right now, and the big factor of that is no state income tax in Florida, as opposed to Canada, where they pay the income taxes through their nose. But
they do, but they also have more social services. But that's another discussion. So it's a trade-off.
Yes. Yeah. It's like getting that out of there. And I was glad, like about 30 minutes after that was announced that day, then Milwaukee, the mayor of Milwaukee, lobbied for the All-Star game. And I'm glad Milwaukee did not get it. And I know that the old baseball team left from Milwaukee to Atlanta back when I was an infant and all that. But no, it's no, I wouldn't. That wouldn't have been a good look in my opinion. Now, what I will say about the Atlanta Braves organization, I have mentioned this before. I did not like that they did that. Milwaukee would ultimately decided against using the Milwaukee Brewers Stadium, at the time named Miller Park, and the Fiserv Forum. They decided not to use that as polling places for the 2020 presidential election. And Milwaukee, like Georgia, like Arizona, was one of the swing states. But Milwaukee was worried that it would be proved illegal, that it would change the course of the voting, and after the fact, before it got certified, all those votes could have been throwing out. So I didn't like the idea of all the early voting and all the promotion with the NFL and the NBA and LeBron James promoting, wanting the ouster of Kenny Loeffler and actually both of the Senate races down there. But uh, besides that, it's Atlanta. Now Phoenix, which 30 years ago had a Super Bowl stripped away. They had a Trumpian governor at the time. Martin Luther King was not a state holiday then. And the governor of Arizona said out front at the time, wasn't that important a person? He said it right out in front of everyone. So, whether that was right or wrong, and, me and you and probably, most people think that was wrong. Should have the holiday.
Yeah.
But they lost them. They got the Super Bowl delayed a couple years over that. And now there's a bill in the Arizona legislature similar to what went down in Georgia, which is going to change the parameter of some of the election laws. And guess what? Phoenix is on deck for a Super Bowl in 2 years, and they may be going through this all over again.
Well, again, companies could protest. I mean, if people could boycott companies, if you look at the right, they're saying, oh, boycott Delta, Coke and their products, MLB and these other things. I mean, they're doing the same thing. So like you said, just that bad policy by that governor about Dr. King. Dr. King was a great man. A lot of times for us to get positive change in this country or any other country, we have to have people to push us out of complacency. And he did that. And unfortunately, people can say, oh, I'm down with Dr. King. But at the time, he was very controversial. Like even when he was marching in Chicago, people would spit upon him and, the marchers. And, that's a North city. And he was actually for, rights for the worker. And some people think that was possibly partly why he was killed. You could even say I'm down with Dr. King, but I mean, basically he was murdered. He was lynched for his beliefs by, that gunman. So it would have been something, Kurt, like think about this. Would the South if companies would have punished their bad behavior with Jim Crow at the time, do you think it's possible that they would have gotten rid of that sooner and we would have justice for those citizens? Because I mean, there was a blind eye with the North and the West and these other parts of the country, and the South was able to do this until 1965 when, you were just, like you said, a baby. Like this is, that's a recent history.
Well, I'll give President Joe Biden credit for finally announcing the end of the 20-year war come September 11, 2021. But I thought he was way over the top with the quote, Jim Crow on steroids label, because you're right, MLB can do what they want. They can move the All-Star game and play it wherever they want. Super Bowl can do likewise. They can move it up the road to Las Vegas. But you're kind of biting the hand that feeds it. They're talking Jackie Robinson Day. They're concerned that Black participation on MLB rosters is down to 7.6%. I believe the Red Sox, Diamondbacks, and San Francisco Giants have no, quote, African-American players on the roster. But you're taking the All-Star game away from a city where the majority of the population is Black. Now, I will say this about the Braves. They had a perfectly good stadium near downtown Atlanta. It wasn't the best stadium. I went to a game there once, but they moved out to just outside of what they call the perimeter. They moved to the suburbs, to more affluent Cobb County. And I think that had something to do with it, and not being involved in the political situation like the Atlanta Hawks were, like the Atlanta Falcons and the Atlanta MLS entry. And that was my take on that.
Well, and if you think about it, what I was reading about the Braves, I mean, if you go to that new stadium in Cobb County, that a lot of taxpayers paid for it, but there's been studies too that taxpayer revenue that goes to these stadiums, they don't see that much for it. It doesn't really help business that much. They haven't, it could even hurt some businesses. So people talk about, people who are down on their luck, you're just giving them handouts. We give handouts to millionaires and billionaires all the time, and they're more costly handouts for little return. I mean, if you're improving your society, whether it's food security, education, health, that's a better investment, because if people are more stable, at least with their living conditions, they'll be more stable in the classroom, working. There'll be less crime as well, because when people are more educated and they're more income and food secure, going against the law is less lucrative. You have less incentive to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not a really good look by MLB. Oh, by the way, ESPN is televising the Atlanta Braves the second straight week on Sunday Night Baseball. Last week it was in Atlanta, the very place where the All-Star game was shut down, which, I mean, consider the irony from that. And they had them 2 weeks ago. They were in Philadelphia, where they had to cover up their All-Star badges from their sleeve like an E4 that got busted down to semen. I mean, they should just put void on it. So, I mean, that was my take on it. I should have talked about it 2 weeks ago, and I said, I did this right off the top with you. But, we're here mostly to talk about sports, and there has been a lot going on. There have been some epic games between the Los Angeles Dodgers and San Diego Padres over this weekend. A great no-hitter, a couple great no-hitters by Carlos Rodon, who I actually saw back in 2013 in the College World Series. I saw him in person, and along with Joe Musgrove with the Padres, first no-hitter, the long-awaited first no-hitter in franchise history. So now the Brewers are back on the clock because they only have one. That was the 1987, they're due. But you wanted to talk about the retirement of LaMarcus Aldridge, who was never one of the big-time stars of the NBA, but I think he made a wise decision in regards to what he's gone through with his health, what he's navigated through in his career. And people of a certain age will remember vividly the tragedies of Hank Gathers and Reggie Lewis. So, and I know you mentioned that you probably don't remember, don't know much about the Hank Gathers and Reggie Lewis cases, but your take on LaMarcus Aldridge's career.
He was a great player. He was number 2 in the draft in 2006. He played for the Trailblazers for many years, and my cousin Lewis loved the Blazers, and he loved LaMarcus. I mean, he had a great steady fadeaway. He was a great scorer. I mean, he was helping lead that franchise before Dame Lillard came. And when Dame was ascending, they were kind of co-stars, 7-time All-Star, 5-time All-NBA. Usually he was second or third team, but, just a very solid player. Almost scored 20,000 points, Kurt. I think he was less than 100 short. And, he wanted that, but, health comes first. He was playing with a congenital heart condition that was getting harder to play with. And like you said, it was risky where he could fall on the court and die potentially, like Mr. Lewis and some of these other athletes. This happens to high school and college players
some
too.
Of our audience might remember Robert Tractor Trailer, who was with the University of Michigan. The Milwaukee Bucks, they traded up and they traded the rights for someone named Dirk Nowitzki for him, and that's changed me to this day. But what people might not know is Robert Trailer died at age 34. He was still playing professionally. I think it was in Puerto Rico at the time. So this has affected players in the past, and I mean, especially, he said he's had a nice career. He has his legacy, a lot of money in the bank, and we wish him the best. I think he made the right decision.
I mean, he's at the point in life where he needs to focus on friends and family, and I'm sure he has a second career in mind. And like, I think in our country, maybe COVID's shown this, like sometimes we just force each other, keep going, whether we have an illness or maybe a disability, and we keep working and overwork, and then it's compromising our health where we can get, extra sick or die. So I'm glad he's going health first. This is going to be a good move. Hope maybe more athletes will start looking into their greater health, because like you said, some people are playing with heart conditions, and you don't want to mess around with that, especially with COVID, where you could get heart problems from that. Like, even if you don't die or get lung, it could mess with your heart. So I mean, that was an added risk he was taking the last year.
Well, I'm still waiting to see the first athlete die of COVID. That's sad, and we
Well,
got to get.
I think somebody did for soccer, but that was overseas in Europe, but early on in the pandemic. I
Okay.
have to double check that, but yeah, nobody in North America that I can think of. But again, we know that young people are getting affected, unfortunately, especially with the Brazilian strain going on. So
Yeah, you have the Brazilian strain, and yes, they play a lot of soccer down there too. So that's another thing. But just in the last weekend, and I have reported this on KAC Media, and actually received quite amount of feedback on this, and I reposted it today, in fact. And what happened was Andrelton Simmons, I remember him with the Atlanta Braves. I want to say there was another team he played for. He opted not to test, not to get vaccinated. And it was offered to the team a little over a week ago. And lo and behold, he went on the COVID reserve list on Tuesday.
mm-hmm.
And I remember that, and I said, no, this does not bode well. There may be a few other players on the team getting this. And then, sure enough, in the middle of a West Coast road trip, the Twins were forced to postpone a couple games in Anaheim. They got to postpone a game Monday in Oakland. If all goes well, the plan is to play a doubleheader in Oakland the next day, and they'll be making up those 2 games against the Angels at some point. But Simmons posted on his account March 26th. I have received some questions about the vaccine. For personal reasons and past experience, I will not be taking or advocating for it. And the Twins have come out with a statement that they believe there's no overlap between the Andrelton Simmons diagnosis and what's going on currently. And according to the club, they have found a variant in the positive test. And this comes Colorado Avalanche. I think this is the second time they've done that. They have postponed a few games. The Vancouver Canucks and the Canadian hockey teams have been staying in Canada all season in their own division. They've been down for 3 weeks with, they got the Brazilian strain. That has hit parts of Canada, including Vancouver. And, I've been screaming for the Canadian border to reopen. It seems like they secure that border more than we secure the US-Mexican border, but that's another topic. But in any event, virtually everyone on the team, the broadcasters, the coaching staff, the mascot, everyone caught COVID, the whole team. And some of them were seriously sick. Now, no one was hospitalized, but I guess a lot of players needed IVs. And if I understood, they were scheduled to play tonight. And hopefully we don't have anything like this in the offing in Major League Baseball or the NBA, where a team has to sit down for several weeks. But the point is, it's still out there.
Well, and it shows you that one person's decision could potentially have a deleterious effect on public health. I mean, again, if you're ready to get vaccinated, go for it. I got mine last week, the first one of 2, and going to get the follow-up on that. I mean, I do take public health seriously. We're all connected. So, I hope the best for the Twins. You don't want to see people get hurt or have their careers hurt or potentially die. So, I'm kind of disappointed, that's his choice, but as an athlete, especially an all-star shortstop, he shouldn't use his platform to go against public health. If that's his, if that's his stance, maybe it would have been better if it were private, but he might have some fans
Maybe
that
if he
might
kept it,
take that
I'm
off.
sure he's not the only one. I mean, there's a percentage, what people like to call the anti-vax crowd. And for the record, I got my vaccines. They were offered to me. I got them out of the way by the end of March. So, I don't look at myself in the clear, though, because of the variants and that.
Yeah.
That being said, I want things to be reopened. I attended something yesterday. I had to run to the bathroom. It's a little too personal. And I got scolded by a security guard for not having my mask on. But in any event, I just want to, get past this where we get more normal. Oregon is looking for making masks permanent, and I hope the Supreme Court gets in the way and blocks that, at least, because
I think they will, because that definitely is an overreach. I know what all the municipalities, even the ones in California that people complain about, they're doing this for this emergency, and this is not a conspiratorial, they're gonna permanently do this. I do think that we're just trying to be careful with public health. People think COVID's done. Obviously, you see with the Twins or these variants, it's not done. A lot of countries are behind with vaccines, and it's starting to mutate and maybe go against the vaccines, which is not a good thing. We still, Kurt, I think averaged 700 to 1,000 in the US with deaths, even though we are getting our vaccines up. So this thing could still rip on populations.
we're at the lowest death rate since about early October. It's in about 6 months. We're at the lowest death rate.
Sure, and there were people who said this wasn't a big deal, but we've lost 580,000 in about 13 and a half months in America. Those are huge numbers, and this is with all the mitigation we've done.
My argument, Bob, is we haven't heard much about the seasonal flu this year. I mean, could it be that what has been called the seasonal flu in the past has been called COVID this year? So I don't totally buy that. Well, the 500, and we could talk about the nursing home deaths, the governor in Minnesota, the governor in Michigan, Governor Cuomo in New York. We got a host of others. I mean, I don't want to put Democratic governors on. Republican governors have been criticized. Kristi Noem in South Dakota, because COVID was through the roof in South Dakota for a while. But everywhere has about taken a turn. This time last year was absolutely horrible in New York.
Like you said, it doesn't discriminate with
it
people or what your political beliefs are or where your location is.
It was horrible in Utah for a while, Wisconsin. Right now, it is going wild in Michigan. I can dunk on Michigan. I can dunk on the governor there, but this may get back into other places. So, I mean, the big thing is people on both sides of the aisle have at some point got to get through this together. I'm just worried about the event that may COVID look like child's play. That's what scares me.
Well, I'm just hoping that we get through this. I mean, still having that amount of death and injury. I mean, there's a lot of people who survive this, but they have permanent lung damage. I mean, that's not a good thing, and you'll be susceptible to other illnesses, or you don't know what that does to their heart and shortens their lifespan. So, I mean, it's more dangerous than even just people, or more serious than just people dying. I know some people just look at the death count, but if let's say 10 times the amount have these permanent injuries, that's not a good thing either. If people look at this in an economic sense, if you're having a lot of people who have chronic health conditions, that's going to make the workforce participation down. That's also going to make it less efficient. So our economy is not going to be better if we have, let's say, 7 to 10 million who have long-term COVID slash, damaged lungs, damaged heart.
Well, I look at world meters every day, but I also looked at, it's like a month ago, weeks ago, and it was like 35 million people have been born, only 15 million have died this year. So, I mean, the population continues to go up. Now, myself, on a personal level, I may have said this the last time I was on with you. I probably said this with AJ in the past, that incredibly, by some miracle, and I thank God for this, that I, for the first time in, I'd say at least 20 years, did not catch a cold during the winter flu season. There have been several times I have lost my voice, and if I'm talking to people on the phone or something during the day, and that's a heck of a handicap. I would get nosebleeds, really bad nosebleeds, every winter for the last 20 years. Not this year. So I don't know, maybe masking up has done well, or maybe me just staying in the house. But I think there's a lot of whatever you think of COVID. March 10th, no, it's like March 3rd, about a week before everything went down last year. I'm getting texts that a tornado hit Nashville, and it was horrible. It goes, that tornado in Nashville was 15,575 times worse, and that phony COVID virus. I was getting those texts. And
I mean, some people are going to downplay it. Maybe some of it is for their own mental health, or maybe too, they're less caring if people are older or sick or poor, where it seems like obviously that's affecting them more. But again, if this virus is ripping through the population, if a lot of people are affected, I think people are like, well, what would happen if 99% of people are fine with this? And we could define fine as being alive. That's how they do. But again, a lot of people get permanent injury. But let's say even if everybody got it in America, that'd be more than 3.3 million people dying. That's a high number. And again, it seems like this virus, at least it could get higher death, because I was reading an article about India. One woman died because they couldn't get her.
India's a problem right now.
Oh yeah, and
that we will see.
When there's too many people who get it, the deaths are going to go up, because there's not enough doctors to go around, or not enough beds, oxygen, medicine. When that's shortage, more people are going to die. I mean, this is such a deadly virus. If this were like 100 years ago, like the Spanish flu at the time, it's possible the death would have been the same or higher, because oxygen and these other medical innovations are keeping people alive, but they didn't have those tools back then.
Well, there are plenty of doctors in India. A lot of them work in the United States. So,
sure.
So, I mean, but obviously you got about 1 billion people at.
Well, I mean, it could definitely rip through. I mean,
it's a huge population there, huge population base. But and then there's this that I received moments before airtime. It isn't the first doomsday report I've seen. High likelihood of human civilization coming to an end by 2050. And I remember the 1970s where we were going to be out of fossil fuel by 1985. And then who the hell knows how we were going to light things up or run a car or anything. But that continues to be, but that's just a headline and like a first paragraph. And then I hit a paywall. But yeah, not the first or last time that you'll see those stories. But here's one that if you want to intercept politics and sports, Kyrie Irving says now is the time to retire the N-word, and he's right. And I agree with them. I think everyone,
well, Kyrie is trying to
be, or anything else should.
Well, he's trying to be more active in the community, and I do think that some people criticize NBA or NFL players a lot, saying that they're all talk, no action. That's not true. True Holiday, for example, gave 5 million of his salary to urban city projects and
Class act from everything
education.
I've heard.
Well, and LeBron, I mean, people could have their opinion about LeBron, but he's giving scholarships to 1,100 students in a school where they can go to college and better their lives. But he's also doing a lot of proactive things, giving parenting classes and GED reading, stuff like that. These courses for the parents to help in job placement, trying to help the Akron community. That's a very tangible thing. And I know there's countless other ones. Even if you look at Kevin Love, he's advocating for mental health, which is a very important thing, especially with this pandemic. But a lot of athletes are, I think, putting time and money to address bigger societal problems. I know with gang violence in Chicago, Derrick Rose and Joakim Noah were very involved, giving time and money and talking to youth to stop the recruitment for gangs, and they've had some success with that. And there's a lot of problems in our society. It's going to take time to address it. I know Kyrie is interested in supporting local politicians in Brooklyn. So I mean, he has a right to support as an American citizen. He's interested in supporting
I don't know. Is
Black-owned
Kyrie an
businesses.
American citizen?
Yes, he is. Yes, he is, definitely.
I was born in Australia.
Well, I think he has dual citizenship right now.
He probably, I imagine he does. No, since his Duke days, I don't think he spends a lot of time down under. Him and Ben Simmons and a few we have the pipeline of Aussies that have always gone through St. Mary's University. But
well, Australia low key's had some great players. You have those
Longley.
two, and well, I wouldn't call Longley a great player, but Bogut.
This is the world champion Chicago Bulls, for crying out loud.
Oh, they won in spite of him. It's amazing that back then offense and everything was predicated more from a center, but you saw that they were very innovative, having the wing score in Jordan and Pippen. So I think they won in spite of Longley. He had a role to play, but they really didn't have great centers. I do think that Bill Cartwright, he could score a little bit. He was on the downturn of his career, but he might have been the best center they had at that run. But they were just trying to predicate it on great defense. Jordan and Pippen moving the ball around. I think that's partly why they won. I mean, Tony Kukoc, was a stretch four. So, before even Dirk Nowitzki and these other guys. So, but yeah, I guess back on Kyrie, it's going to take time to make change, and he's trying to address these things in an intellectual way. And I think it's going to take time for change to happen, but every step in the right direction, you got to take it, even if you change some minds.
Here's what I want to get at. You're a music guy. You have a diverse musical interest, Bob. We lost DMX a little over a week ago at age 50. I'll be honest, I didn't know much about. I barely heard of him. Someone told me, "Hey, DMX died." I'm going, DMX. I didn't know who it was, but then I listened to some of his music, and if you're in the right mood, it actually hypes me up. It's like to hear Rough Riders Anthem on the way to work. I blasted at full blast on the way home from work one day. I was so pissed off. But in the music of DMX and many others, you hear the N-word quite often.
Well, in some of it, from what I've read,
you can't delete their music. You can't cancel their music.
And like I said, some of the stuff that I've read from a lot of music publications or racial commentaries on this, they were trying to reclaim a word because there's so much pain in it, at least expressively. They wanted to reclaim the word. I think another issue, maybe that word is used a lot in rap because that's how they're viewed in society. If you look at some of the systemic problems and other problems we have in our country that's been overlooked for year upon year. Even some people thought that after the civil rights movement, America was a perfect country. I do think that we're a great country. I'm going to make that clear, but we're a work in progress. And I think our Constitution has allowed us to have a work in progress where, slavery was abolished, which is a great thing. You had individual rights too in the 14th Amendment that was established. Women, the right to vote, us voting as a people for our senators instead of having state legislatures. But like you see this incremental, or 21, the voting age went from 21 to 18 because you have, if you could sign a contract or go in the military, you should have the right to vote. These things were very important, Kurt, and these were actually progressive ideas. And I do think that when we become a more open society and give more opportunity to people, it could be a better reflection on having equality under the law, or especially like just everybody having the pursuit of happiness. So, but you see these things, it just takes a while to have positive change. I mean, look at even baseball or other sports where unfortunately Black and brown players couldn't play, and then Jackie Robinson had to come and start that conversation. And he was actually one of the catalysts for the civil rights movement from the 50s to 60s, because it was him, and then also the busing boycott that happened. So
and baseball can support diversity and support the accomplishments of Black players. And I will admit that the Black membership of Major League Baseball from today to, let's say, 1980, I remembered when the San Diego Padres had 7 Black players between their outfield and their infield. That's when Ozzie Smith started his career.
Or the Pirates in 1979,
Kurt. Catcher and the pitching staff. And that got back into the old argument that catchers and pitchers are not unlike the quarterbacks in football. They are the, quote, leadership of the team. So here you have most of the other players, Black or Latino or Dominican, but the pitchers and the catchers, most of them are white. So that was the argument back then. What I think we're seeing is, I think Blacks have gravitated more towards football and basketball.
Well, that's part of it, Kurt, but I think too, with education and business opportunities opening up, some people might be doctors and lawyers, or firemen or businessmen, or even police officers or teachers. So I know some people are talking about, oh, it's bad, there's less Black players, and some of it, there needs to be better outreach. I know MLB is making some urbanized youth leagues, which is, I think, a very good thing, because at the very least, you're helping young people maybe do 60 minutes or more of exercise. I know that was a former administration's goal, and that's a very good goal.
If you're growing up and you want to be you want to get a degree and you want to chase an athletic scholarship, on the men's side, the 2 best sports to accomplish that in is football and basketball. There aren't too many college baseball or even college hockey players on scholarship.
Nope. And some of that too has to do with how much could a family afford, because when I was covering Eastern Illinois baseball, when I was in college, they told me the most they gave out in a scholarship was $2,500. But if you had room and board and a full class load, with books and fees, you're spending about $15,000-$16,000. So the baseball scholarship is only covering, it's not even covering 20% of your costs. So if that's prohibitive, or you don't want to take out a lot of loans, it's not a good option. I think even other sports like track had a higher one there. So
to bring up your point, Vanderbilt has become a college baseball power, and I don't want to make this about college baseball. It doesn't attract a wide audience, but they have been a mainstream contending for a national championship. And 2 years ago, they played Michigan in the finals of the College World Series. And what Vanderbilt and Michigan have in common was to circumvent the limited amount of scholarships available in baseball. A lot of players on both of those teams were actually on academic scholarships and were able to play on the baseball program. Well, I found interesting.
well, I'm hoping they're not fudging it too much. Like, I'm hoping they have really good student athletes, and that's not taking a scholarship away from somebody just having a normal type of degree.
Yeah, are they giving people academic scholarships just because they can play a little baseball on the side? That's another, we know Vanderbilt isn't the greatest in most other sports, but baseball has been their thing. They put a lot of pitchers into the major leagues. Jack Leiter, Al Leiter's son, he's like appointment if you like college baseball, he's appointment at TV every Friday night. But yeah, there's been a slew of people that have talent that has gone through there. And that's, I actually do want to turn the conversation a bit towards baseball, because you and me, and then for the record, for those of you looking for AJ Kaufman, he will be on Ed Morrissey tomorrow. I'm not going to listen to it live because that goes over YouTube, and that's going to send my data limits through the roof at work. So I'll watch it at home and navigate through 25 different commercials. But that's where the cough will be tomorrow, with a much larger audience on the Morrissey show, which has gotten way too liberal, in my opinion. There's another show Charlie Sykes hosts called The Bulwark, and I'm getting to think, are these guys starting to turn liberal? But in any event, this is a list that I received in an email from an anonymous source on disastrous contracts. And he also is a huge fan of how the Tampa Bay Rays do business. And I guess Tampa Bay handed it over to the New York Yankees yet again today. So here is the list I have of players that have been paid way too much money and have not, in some people's opinion, lived up to their contracts. Jason Hayward. I don't know, when he broke in, there were just huge things expected. Hasn't quite materialized. He's still playing, decent career. Was he 12th year in?
I mean, he basically won. I mean, he's got full pension, he got the money, but no, I agree. I would say his career is a disappointment, but I mean, I would still consider him an above average player.
And we have Giancarlo Stanton. And then Manny Machado. Now, I watched some of the game today. He had 3 hits, but then he came up with ducks on the pond in the 8th inning. He flew out, and here come the text that Machado has choked again in the clutch.
Well, again, I believe he's a 4 to 5-time All-Star, plays multiple positions, and he played great last year. He was number 3 in MVP voting. I believe he was number 3 in the past as well. I mean, he's a high-end player.
I'll take him for the defense.
Well, exactly. But look at this, Kurt. You have, I think, a win in baseball is about maybe 8 million. Maybe I've been hearing 9. So if he averages about 3 wins, he's already even paid the contract back. And really, he's one of the players who are making other players want to sign there, or they're aggressively making trades. He's part of that with him and Tatis, and they got some great pitchers there. They're going for it, and people can argue about the semantics for money, but if they are getting more fans in the stands and higher ratings, that pays for it. You gotta pay. I mean, if you believe in capitalism, you gotta pay to invest in a good product, and that's what they're doing.
Well, here we go. Since he got traded from Baltimore, that first year with the Dodgers, 273. Well, that was half a year.
But look.
They went to the World Series. So
in 66 games, Kurt, he had almost 3 wins in just 66 games, 13 home runs, and he played great in the playoffs. I mean, I think he hit a home run that helped them win the pennant. And you put that together, what he did with Baltimore and the Dodgers, who's almost a 6-win player, and that's not even his best year. Well, and then again, batting, I know people look at batting average, but that's an older stat.
Oh,
you want to see how much.
And it was 256 his first year with the Padres. Okay, it
but,
was.
But like 3.1 WAR. I mean, that's still like a borderline all-star. Maybe he didn't get 30 million, but 30 million for a star is low, especially if you would put the value of him getting that's 24 million. You're in the hole for 6 theoretically, but again, I think they said that he helped with sales for about 3 to 4 million, so that's about a wash.
If he's earned his contract, if he's earned every penny of it or whatever.
Well, I think that's a moot thing because we're arguing about other people's pocketbooks. There's nothing we can do about that.
I'm just worried about if you're not going, whether they make 3 million or 30 million.
It's irrelevant because think about in baseball, you have an unlimited, you could have an unlimited payroll, so it's up to the owners to see how much they want to pay, and they suppress the market a lot. And is that something that we want to support? I mean, if we want normal workers to be paid more, and sports reflects society. If people get more pay, then it will trickle down to us. If you think about it, these are societal attitudes. I mean, last year he was a great player. I mean, you can say, oh, he was uneven.
In line with his career averages. If we combine last season with the beginning of this season, 77 games, he's hitting about 290.
Well, I want to know what the hell happened to Pete Alonso. How come that guy gets? Well, how come Pete Alonso gets a pass? I want to know that. I mean, he didn't do.
Good question.
But I'm just saying you could cherry pick anything you want. If you like baseball, saying, oh, it's a long season strategy, some of it's dumb luck, people are going to have up and downs, even great players.
No, that is a very good question. I didn't even think of the polar bear. What is the polar bear doing these days? I'll get to the Mets, and we can now pick apart Frankie Lindor while we're at it. But I might get over here. Yeah, I'm going to erase my little notes that I just made. Let's look at the New York Mets. So here, God. See, I don't follow the NL East much, so it's like I don't even know these people exist. But here we go.
He's batting .222 right now. That seems like a very good average.
You need to let people know about this.
Oh no, it's all good. I mean,
here we go. Pete Alonso. Oh, here we go. And let's see. Yeah, he was flirting with like a 50 home run season as a rookie. Oh, 53. Never mind flirting. He had 53. Struck out 183 times, but
his OPS is falling each year, if you see.
Yeah, and since then, well, it's not like the batting average has fallen too much. It's a career 251 hitter. He's hitting again, we can pick on the 60 game season. Well, it's 231. Yeah, 16 home runs, not bad. This year, not a whole lot. So, I don't know, has Alonso gotten his big contract yet? That's the question. I guess that is why I guess he gets a pass from some people. But let's get to Frankie Lindor, who was paid an absolutely ridiculous amount of money.
Well, great. You have to say he's a great player. I mean, would you pay to see him? I would. I mean, I don't want to go to a game with just like a rebuilding team.
I followed Cleveland baseball over the years, and
but I mean, but you see like what the Cleveland baseball team's doing, Kurt. They keep on divesting their talent. If you keep stripping your team,
baseball, say their name. Cleveland baseball team.
Cleveland baseball team.
The tribe.
But I mean, I think you should keep Lindor. I mean, if you really want to go for it, because who do they have? They have a couple of good pitchers, and then you have Jose Ramirez, and that's basically your team. You have a lot of no-name guys right now, but I mean, the Mets
I
are
mean,
going for
I've
it.
been frustrated by the guy the last couple years. But we're looking right now. He is,
Well,
and
he was
and the
fantastic.
Mets have only played 11 games. They were supposed to play the Nationals, and that series got postponed. And well, he is up to 2 RBIs right now, which is more than me and you, Bob.
Yeah.
And
But if you look at this, look, he was fantastic for 5 years, and then he has a slightly below average year. But if you look at the law of averages, I think he's gonna be fine. With some great players like him or Javi Baez, they didn't have a good rhythm with starting your season in late July. You're only playing 60.
hey,
Like spring
look
training
at
went on and
Christian
off.
Yelich. He was an absolute dumpster fire.
Well, and I think Yelich is going to be fine. I mean, if he didn't get hurt, he would have had 2 MVPs, Kurt. I mean, I enjoy, even though I'm not a Brewers fan, and you and I argue about them sometimes. He's a fantastic player. I love watching him play. He runs like a deer.
Well,
I believe isn't
2018. I have no arguments with him. 8 games, wins above replacement. Last year, well, okay, 60 games, it's kind of hard to quantify it, but 0.8, and it's hard to quantify the 11 games the Mets have
yeah. But
played
if you look
this year.
before that too, he was four and a half on the low end and consistently mid fives. I mean, that's a great player. And if you're a shortstop, that's a defensive plus position. They consider that in center field. Your most athletic players who could give you a better defensive term. I mean, if you look at him and you look at Pete Alonso, he's worth more for being a great defender because first base is where you hide the guys who can't field. And so that means when Lindor ages, he can move to second base or third base. Like a lot of guys, when they age, they go to a different place where they can be effective still. So I mean, and those are higher rated defensive positions. So that's where that theory comes in.
By the way, if a 4-alarm fire breaks out in a residential neighborhood on the outskirts of St. Cloud, Minnesota tonight, this will be someone fuming over what is being discussed right now.
Oh, I'm fine with that. I'm totally fine. I mean, if we want to have an honest intellectual conversation, we have to know where these decisions come from. With what's the value of war? What's the value of a position? What's the value of interchangeability of position?
We're not. Oh no, we can't talk about advanced analytics on this show.
But to me, that's a dishonest argument.
Yeah, talk 1970 old school statistics.
Well, but again, I think we evolve in our understanding, and I want to take baseball with an evolved thing. I mean, I still like people stealing bases, or we talked about like Wilson Contreras doing backpicking. I enjoy watching that, but I mean, if you have information and you can make your players better, I don't see why that's a bad thing.
Yeah. Oh, and they're showing Lindor doing something right now, and actually.
Exactly, he does something. What does Pete Alonso do? He sits on first base.
Yeah, I don't see Alonso in this video, which I want to stop.
But in all seriousness, I'm wearing Golden State right now. I wanted to talk a little bit about Steph Curry. Like, what do you think about the season, Kurt, he's having? Like, right now, Golden State, unfortunately, is a dumpster fire with players hurt. And
he had a huge game the other night, I'll say that.
Did 11 threes, 47 points. His stats are actually higher, most of his stats than his second MVP year when he was unanimous. He's 33 right now, and he became the second player all time to have 10 straight 30-point plus games. Kobe was the other one. So even Jordan and Wilt, Kareem, these great scorers didn't even achieve that. So what do you think about him just playing great on just a mediocre team right now?
I did catch some of the game last Monday. I see Golden State on the TV schedule. They're on TV way too often for a bad team. But
I think it'll change when Clay's back. I think that's going to change because with his defense and
the
shooting,
announcers at night, Jason Benetti, he's actually doing NBA games now. He did a great job calling the Rodon no-hitter the other night as well.
He's very talented.
Yes, I actually enjoy Well, I wasn't much of a Hawk Harrelson fan, but I enjoy Steve Stone and I enjoy Jason Benetti. But Benetti said, I think he can get this 19 points in the first quarter. And my gosh, he did. And then he was up to a 50 burger by the end of the third period. It was a close game. I'm going like, I gotta keep an eye. He could go off for 70. It didn't materialize. He cooled off in the fourth quarter. And actually, that game ended up on a major bummer when Jamal Murray went down with the torn ACL, and he's gone for the year. And I imagine in the next year, had a scare in Utah with Donovan Mitchell. And by the way, I wanted to ask you about D Wade. D Wade, and look, I mean, I'm on board with D Wade, former Marquette alum, one of the greatest player that Marquette University has ever had.
So Jay Crowder. I mean, I like the Marquette
took the
basketball
team
players.
to a Final Four, but he could have been part of. And I know there are a lot of athletes who could get into ownership groups, partial ownership in the NBA. LeBron James has gotten a stake in the Red Sox. I think he's involved in Liverpool FC as well, which is on the same campus with the same ownership. But Dwayne Wade is now involved in Utah Jazz ownership and wants to play an active role in the organization. And I'm hoping this ends up a win-win for everyone involved, for the Jazz and for Dwayne Wade.
I mean, I think that's a huge win for the Jazz because, you have Stockton and Malone. Darren Williams had some nice years before injuries took a toll on him.
Franchise.
Yeah, well, I mean, it helps their franchise a lot because, I mean, Dwayne Wade, for a while, people thought he was better than LeBron. Now that wasn't true. I loved watching Dwayne Wade back in the day. He had flashy athleticism. He's a great shooter, a great leader. But I mean, that's how good of a player he was. People were saying is Wade better than LeBron, which I never thought, but he was definitely like a top 5 player for quite a few years. But that helps the Jazz tremendously because right now you have Gobert, you have Mitchell. They're a solid core, but I mean, if they want to be long-term players trying to get superstars, I mean, having somebody with Dwayne Wade's pedigree is great, whether he wants to go into coaching or become a GM eventually. There's a lot, I think, he's a winner. He's won 3 championships. And like you said, Final Four, he's been on Olympic gold medal teams. And I think when FIBA, he was on the U.S. basketball team in those off years to win championship or gold medals. I think he could bring something. And to me, it's encouraging when the labor force with players, they get more involved in ownership or other business dealings, because I think that helps the league as a whole with their relationships with people and their understanding on where basketball came from and where it's going.
And like, I know you enjoyed watching The Last Dance docs about a year ago this time, and the Utah Jazz had a bit of a role in the final episodes. They didn't win, but they gave Michael Jordan and the Bulls all they can handle. The flu game has about a place in here. It's like, I don't know how you catch the flu around June 15th, but it sounded like more of a food poisoning thing. And there have been conspiracy theories on that over the years. But
I believe Jordan on that because, I don't think he was playing possum or anything. He looked dog sick and still did a fantastic
I'm
job.
not doubting that.
I mean, I remember that. So I was only 9 at the time, Kurt, and he was like a superhero to me. Like when he was playing, I know it was 2-2, Kurt, and that was a tight game. I'm just like, I know Jordan's going to come through, and he wasn't that great of a 3-point shooter, but then he hits that shot, to give him the lead at the end. I'm like, man, and he played great defense. I rewatched the game. He had great defense that game, and I know people are like, well, LeBron's the better passer, and he is, even though I think Jordan was an above average passer himself, but Jordan was the better defender, and LeBron was very high end defender for about 8 to 9 years. But Jordan throughout his whole career, just has these crazy numbers between steals, deflections, even blocking. He can face guard guys well. It's a new, like, watching that documentary and rewatching the game with my knowledge now, it's like I couldn't fully appreciate it as a kid because, when you're a kid, you're thinking about, stop the other guy and score points, but then you see the intricacies of what they did. It was amazing.
Oh, I would go by the bar inside the bowling alley, and someone else would be going past there in the Bulls playoff games and the Bulls, and even getting into the Derrick Rose there. I would stop by the Brock shop in Kenosha, and they had the Bulls on, and Kenosha's Illinois. Tony Romo's from Burlington. I love it when Jim Nantz asks, "Oh, you're Wisconsin?" No. Burlington is Baja, Illinois. Romo is a Chicago Bears fan. He will tell you that that's the team he grew up rooting for, and it's all good.
Well, one thing too, Kurt. We're talking about injuries. Weissman got hurt. Clay got hurt again.
Right.
Giannis is hurt. LeBron, AD. A lot of the stars and above average players are getting hurt, and some people think it's possible. And I think there's a lot of credence.
Quick turnaround this year, obviously.
Exactly. You had a stoppage. Then people were playing in the bubble. Some people got seriously hurt, like Jonathan Isaac, for example, one of the building blocks for the Magic. And then now what you're saying, because Murray played a lot in the bubble, played fantastic.
Yeah,
and and then now he's hurt, which is bad. But like
he got hurt.
It seems like a lot of people, there was just a lot of stress on those bodies. And I know that's why they were trying to carefully negotiate the start of the season, because they're like, yeah, we know we can get these games in, but we're worried about long-term health on some of our players. And I'm hoping, the league starts getting more healthy, and, these players' careers could be okay. And I think it will, but it's going to be a tough offseason.
Milwaukee Bucks have basically punted the regular season. They're happy finishing in third place, rather than what had happened the last 2 years, where they by far had the best record, and people saying, okay, they're a great regular season team, but what can they do in the playoffs? I think this year, hopefully, if you're a Milwaukee fan, it'll be the opposite, that the number one thing is, we've talked about Jrue Holiday, which I think is an upgrade from Eric Bledsoe. The key is having number 34 100% come playoff time.
He's playing better than the other 2 years, Kurt.
Season where Milwaukee shines this year.
He was a candidate. The MVP race is kind of messed up, because you looked at people like Giannis or LeBron or Harden.
They were just in the MVP. He's got two of them.
Well, but I think if he were healthy, he could have potentially won it, because he's even playing better if you look at his advanced stats and understanding on how to dictate a game. Free throws are still not where I would like him to be, but everything else he does is.
Because earlier this year, I know they were down, and I was really, we can pick apart someone's game not being 100%, but free throws.
Sure.
And so we saw this with Russell Westbrook too, where all of a sudden he became mediocre, even below average free throw shooter.
Well, I think some of it, Kurt, look at what Giannis does. He's the leader on defense and offense, and he also facilitates. He's asked to do more than most players, like people like kind of at Harden's level or Steph's level or LeBron's level. They're the ones asked to do everything, and he kind of has that. So I could see why maybe the free throw thing could be hard for him. His mid-range has improved a lot. I would say the one weak area of his game is free throws, but I mean, you would take everything else. And I think the Bucks have a chance anytime 34 suits up. I know they've had a couple tough playoffs, but I do believe in him. So, and like you said, they do have a better supporting cast. People say, they just surround him with shooters. They have great shooters. And if the shooters hit, they're going to win. So it's kind of a chess match they're doing. But since he's ascending and they have a better sidekick, so it's kind of like you have him and Holiday, and then you also have Middleton. It's a very solid team. The Nets have to be healthy, and we don't know if they will be with KD being hurt.
And Giannis is signed.
He's signed.
We're worried that this would be the last year of him, and he would be headed to your team at Golden State or the Lakers or wherever.
Oh, it would have been nice if he went to Golden State, because I think him and Curry have a great rapport, especially when they play with each other in the All-Star game. Do you remember that time? I think it was 2019. Curry just was driving in the basket. He bounced it, and then Giannis went it was like 13 feet in the air, and then he dunked it. That was a great display of athleticism. And I'm sure that having that verticality would be fun to see with Steph, because he hasn't really had too many lob threats in his career.
And I should really plug more often, and plugged at the start. you do a great job on the Bajek and Brown show. I think it airs weekly, semi-weekly. But
it does. We've had a bit of a pause, but we're hoping to start it up again. But we're on Spotify,
I've had a
Apple.
pause doing the podcasts and some of the content on kacmedia.com, but I'm intending to come back strong. There's so much that I wanted to comment on last weekend, never got around to. Brett Favre made some statements that were lambasted by the media. And go ahead, bash Brett Favre for some of his what he says. He said that the athletes should stay out of politics, and the basic line from a lot of the media is, hey, you played in a league that is nearly 2/3 black, and this is where you made your money, and
Yes.
now you're biting the hand that feeds you. Well, this is the same guy who a year ago said Colin Kaepernick, I don't know if he said Medal of Honor, but he said he, along with Pat Tillman, should have places in the Hall of Fame for what they did off the field in different areas. Obviously, what Pat Tillman did and paid the ultimate price for, and what Colin Kaepernick did, which not everyone agrees, myself included. I remember the game he sat during the national anthem, and I think it was more about him being pissed that he was the number 2 quarterback at that point in training camp than anything. He turned it into a social justice issue a week later. I remember the preseason game after that in San Diego. He knelt, and then that's when it became a social justice movement. So that was my opinion on when that happened. What was it, 2016?
Yes, but what Kaepernick did, I mean, he's also backed it with activity and money. He's given money to these causes. Like, I think it was more than $1 million. And I mean, he's taken a hit.
These days? I mean,
but Kurt, he took a hit on his career for his beliefs too. I mean, you can disagree with it, but he's right. If you look at what's happened with police violence in this country during George Floyd's murder trial, you have like 2 other shootings that happened in the week. I mean, like, I think it shows you that there's an issue. There's an issue with that needs to be addressed, and he was peacefully protesting. If people complain that a black man takes a knee, which is his First Amendment right, and he's doing it peacefully, and they're complaining and they want to shut it down, I mean, they shouldn't be surprised if there's bigger problems. I mean, you need to address issues, and I don't think he did anything wrong. I mean, look at all the protests that's been in sports for years. Again, sports are a reflection of society. People talk about the gladiatorial events in Rome back in the time. That was political for various reasons. I mean, it's just part of the human experience.
Well, some wonder, here we're in a society where the biggest sports story of the weekend was Jake Paul beat some has-been MMA fighter in a boxing match in the first round. And I don't even know who Jake Paul, they tell me he's a former YouTube star. I guess we're trying to be aspiring YouTube and podcast stars. I guess Jake Paul is a YouTube star, and he had to walk back a comment, and he felt that he was in the early stages of CTE. But if we're going to make Jake Paul the #1 sports story on the Sportscast, then we might as well talk professional wrestling, for crying out loud. It's like we all know that a production, it's entertainment, that it's not an actual competition, but it's something that, when I was a kid, I at least got a good laugh out of. Was Bobby the Brain Heenan was as good as any comedian at the time, in his role as a wrestling heel. But I wanted, before we get off, I wanted to turn back to a more serious topic. And we talked about what happened again in the Minneapolis area, this time Brooklyn Park, about this time last Sunday night. And then something else happened involving a 13-year-old, for crying out loud, in Chicago. And it doesn't just happen to Black people. There was an autistic kid in Salt Lake City last September. I highlighted that story on kacmedia.com. Was shot several times by police. His mom had asked the police to come over to settle a dispute. The kid ran outside, was shot by the cops, and when the cops got to him, somehow he survived, but he's in bad shape, the last I read. But his first words were, "I don't feel good." It's like I almost wanted to come out with a t-shirt saying, "I don't feel good," like we had the "I Can't Breathe" t-shirts. We
Well,
can talk about what's happened to black youths, what's happened to white youths.
well,
People
this is a problem for everybody, Kurt, because the
problems
police are here to serve. Yeah, they're here to serve and protect. And if you have a militarized police force that has bad policy and bad training, this shows you this is a systemic problem. You can't tell me it's not a systemic problem when during a murder trial, and this guy is going to get convicted. I mean, we all have seen the video. During a murder trial, you have 2 more incidents in the same week.
Right.
I mean, it shows you that there's a problem. This is a training issue. This is a policy issue, like what you
the
do.
NBA has already braced for a verdict. They're worried. They are already prepared to postpone the schedule if need be this week. And I'm not into the court cases. I don't follow the court cases gavel to gavel like some people do. But it's obviously from everything.
But this is a big issue, Kurt. I know in that trial with Derek Chauvin, 7 police officers, I'm counting 7, testified against him. That's very damning. People talk about a blue wall of silence. That was broken in this. So
and I would be fair. I would be surprised as anyone if he was found not guilty. I remember Milwaukee was, I remember 30 years ago, Bob, Milwaukee was on pins and needles when Jeffrey Dahmer was on. So that is about that, and O.J. Simpson and maybe Rodney King were the only trials I really followed. And this is when there was a fledgling TV channel called Court TV, and this was on every day, not to mention on every local TV station. And that verdict came in about 2 hours, and he was guilty of every single charge. But it was scary hearing, like, if he gets off on his argument of mental illness, there will be riots all across the country.
Well, and this shows you, like, with the police issue.
Katie barred the door with Milwaukee at that time.
I was too young for Rodney King because I was 4, but I watched a couple documentaries on Netflix that talked about it. I think they came out 2017, 2018. I forgot the names, but they were well done documentaries. You had a huge example of police brutality and they got off. And you would have thought that we would have better training and better policies, better vetting, more recourse to people getting brutalized by police. And that issue's been left alone, Kurt, for 29 years. And, some people act surprised, but, these things were not filmed on phones. The phone has been a great equalizer here.
Homeless man, I don't know, it was Huntington Beach or whichever southern, maybe Orange County, was killed at the hands of police. And the police said, I'm going to choke you out, or, I forget his exact words, but yes, right in front of it was still to this day a horrible thing to watch, whether it's someone who's white, who's black. Yep. Yes.
And this affects everybody. You're correct, Kurt.
Video, George Floyd, horrible. I can't watch those.
No, you're correct, Kurt. Some people think this is just for the black and brown community. That's not true. This is for everybody. You have police that are doing bad things, and some of it, again, is just bad policy, bad training. They said that there's been studies that just these foot pursuits or these car chases, a lot of bad outcomes happen because these are voluntary things the police choose to do.
Oh, okay.
You're getting your adrenaline higher, Kurt. When your adrenaline is higher, you get that more fight or flight response. And then that's why sometimes people are getting shot when there could have been another way.
I remember a police chase in Phoenix that ended with 2 of the TV helicopters covering the darn thing crashed.
So, I mean, there's got to, no matter what you think, the police are not going to get abolished. I know, like, people talk about that. I think that there's going to be a rethinking where, do we need all of these resources for a militarized police? I think they're going to invest in better training.
This problem child that was with the Tennessee Titans, and the police gave up on a pursuit. This guy was going 140 miles an hour. I mean, I got to give him credit for being able to go 140 miles an hour before he crashed his rig, and he lived to tell about it.
Well, but that's the thing, Kurt. I think that there just has to be more accountability, and I think that's what's going to happen. I mean, it has to. I mean, again, what cell phones have done, they've done a good thing to spread this information to other communities that are not affected to this. I mean, in America, we want people to have equal protection under the law, and like you said, this is for autistic people or white people, wealthy people, poor. It's for everyone, because this is it's violating amendments, Kurt. You have like the 5th, the 6th, the 8th for cruel and unusual punishment, the 14th Amendment as a citizen under this country. This is an amendatory issue. Like, people say that, oh, this is like woke social justice stuff. That's not true. This is a constitutional issue as us as citizens, where police have a lot of power, because not only could they arrest and charge us, but they can beat and kill us with, either with their sticks, like with Rodney King, or with guns. And we don't have that as citizens. I mean, they need accountability if they're supposed to enforce the law, and we're paying them as well. This is a public trust.
And on a slightly different angle, here's what's happening. I'm losing count of these small active shooting incidents, these multiple death incidents. I think we had 8 fatalities at, I think it was a FedEx facility near the Indianapolis airport. That was on Friday. We had several people shot, 3 dead that I know of. That was in the bar in Kenosha County, Wisconsin on Saturday night. And we had something else go down in Northwest Austin, Texas today.
There's a shooting in Omaha as well. So, I mean, it's sad. It's sad. And
Omaha yesterday, and they had to close a shopping mall due to a shooting. There was 1 fatality there. There was an active shooter incident December 5th, 2007 that took several lives at a Anchor Von Mars store in Omaha. It's like, I'm losing count of these. A week ago, we had a prominent doctor in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, Rock Hill, South Carolina. He, his wife, 2 single-digit age grandchildren, and 2 others killed at the hand of an ex-NFL player
who potentially had CTE. Some of this,
as the media has already determined.
Sure, but I mean, I think there's a valid issue on that. CTE does change your personality, unfortunately, and you don't have your inhibitions anymore. That's part of it. Where bad decisions like that could happen. That's why there's some violence or suicide when you don't have those controls in your brain. Some of this seems to be a mental
back under control.
Well, and I think part of this is a mental. You're correct, Kurt. This is a mental health issue, because I think the shooter in Indianapolis, they said that he was suicidal and he should not have had a gun. And I know there's laws on the book that wasn't enforced. They need to enforce that, and I think they need to have more interventions. There was the shooting that happened in Denver. They think too that was another.
Boulder, yes,
or that's what I meant. That's another mental health issue, and we need to make sure that. I think we need more investment in this.
Atlanta one, I guess.
Yes.
At the massage parlors, and they said this was a deranged sex addict. The media tried to turn it into a big racial issue. Steve Kerr turned it into a racial. Did Steve Kerr do a press conference last week with the names of the 6 people killed in Rock Hill, South Carolina?
I don't know, but again, as an American citizen, he can pick and choose what he wants to shed light on. I think he's concerned because there is a huge Asian population in the Bay Area and in California, and there has unfortunately been a rise in hate crimes against Asian Americans in this country, which is wrong, and that might have been part of it. But we know, in fairness to Steve Kerr, his father got killed from gun violence, so this is an issue that is important, and it hurts him. So I think sometimes society gets numb with this. It's possible Steve Kerr could be numb on this. But I mean, again, as a citizen, if you believe in the First Amendment, he can talk about this issue. But like you were talking about, Kurt, I do think that there needs to be more health resources, and we could decide to do this. If we're starting Space Force, that's what Trump started. I disagree with that because that's a bad allocation of taxpayer money. Why can't we just end that and stop this military industrial complex welfare? Why can't we just put some of this in mental health and food security and things that actually could help our society? I mean, you already have like 6 branches in the military. Why do you need a 7th?
that Donald Trump did good things and not so good things.
Well, and I think that's any president,
And
but
personally, I still consider him my president. Now, Joe Biden, I give him credit for ending the 20-year war. I don't give him credit with or Vice President Harris with what's going on, the horrible things going down at the Mexican border right now involving children that are caught in the middle of the whole mess. Now, with Donald Trump, at least he tried to do something with the border. Was it totally successful? That's in the eye of the beholder. He made a wise move getting Amy Coney Barrett on the Supreme Court, which, whether you're whatever side of the aisle you're on, I thought that was a very good nomination. There were some Joe Biden cabinet nominations ever kind of shaky. Nira, what's her name, and a couple others, but it's what it is. It's like we've got to rein in some things right now, whether it's the thing at the border and what's going to happen with the border. Is they're going to move those they're going to have camps where these children are going to be throughout the country that they're going to be growing up in. And with the migrants who see their migrant camps that have been in the United States in the past. And I was listening to Bill Cunningham. He's a conservative guy that does a talk show on Sunday night out of Cincinnati. And he said, look at where these internment camps are. They are in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. They are in Provo, Utah. Wow, he mentioned two towns near and dear to my heart. So I'm looking at what the heck's going on in Milwaukee and what's going on in Provo, Utah. And I'm reading about someone that was in one of the migrant camps in Mexico who was deported. He got a car, got drunk, and he killed someone there. So and we were picking out one person there or other things, but it kind of causes a change in the dynamics and the landscape which goes on. And even here in Nebraska, we have a lot of Latino people, hardworking, I might add, working for a lot of the meat factories that were highly impacted by the COVID situation. And that's what happened in South Dakota, what happened in Nebraska, why COVID got very high for a while. But at the end of the day, I'm all for people entering this country legally, but we've got to rein some things in, and Joe Biden better figure it out.
No, and I think he will. If the Republican Party is not going to be obstructionist, I think there could be reform on immigration that's needed for years. I mean, they were trying to do this back 15 years ago, and then there was a kibosh on that. So, I mean, again, we have a lot of issues in this country, but I do think that if we work together, I mean, we can solve this. I mean, you want to try to make a more perfect union. I mean, that's a social contract we have, and I do think people are trying to do that. It's, again, Kurt, it's going to take time. I mean, it's kind of hard when, again, you have COVID and a jobs thing and all these things going on, but I mean, you just got to take it a day at a time and just hope we progress in a positive way in this society.
Yeah, and like as always, it's good getting on with you and debating a lot of these topics of the day. I'm going to be having I might have a variety of guests on in future weeks. I might have Tad Stryker on. I plan to have Tad Stryker on, who you know very well, Bob. It's very good, knowledgeable on college football. I think he's watched every Nebraska Cornhuskers game since the beginning of time. I might get Andy Rain on. He's had aspirations of becoming the mayor in our town here in Lincoln, Nebraska. He has some different viewpoints, and it's another target I have as a guest. And I'm going to continue to build this program, and hopefully I can get some state legislatures on. Oh, by the way, Josh Stein, San Diego Padres, you have an open invitation anytime to be on the show and defend Fernando Tatis and Manny Machado. I know he won't do it, especially during the season, but he has an open invitation.
Oh, he doesn't have to even work that hard to defend it. Those players are good investments, and they're helping build that team. I mean, you'll see them in the playoffs. I'm told he's the
worst person on planet Earth right now, an elite Berkeley yuppie who hasn't really worked a real day in his life.
I don't know. He's running the Padres well, so I mean, he's got that.
And then we'd like to say hi to all our teacher union. You know what? If I'm a I'll close by saying this. If I was a strategist or someone representing the teachers union right now, I wouldn't be arguing about COVID and reopening the schools. I would be saying we have enough damn shootings going on in grocery stores, in bars, in taverns, and places where people socialize, in the workplace. At least we haven't had any school shootings lately. I hate to think of what will happen once the schools reopen. And maybe that's a real argument that teachers ought to have right now, is security within their own schools, and not with the virus, which everyone has to deal with in some way, shape, or form sooner or later. Bob Bajek, always great to have you on. We'll have you on again. This is Crowley Channel, episode number 9. Number 10. This number 10, we're gonna make sure that's epic as well. We're gonna build this thing, and it's gonna get better and better and better. We'll see you soon. Bob Bajek, thank you. Good night, everyone.
Thanks again, Kurt.